chosen one. If you're hearing this before midnight, it means the message finally made it to you. 3 nights ago, I was awakened at 2:47 a.m. by what I can only describe as the sound of scrolls unrolling in heaven. And your name, yes, your name was written in fire across every single one. This is not a video. This is a summons, not another teaching. This is your final scroll, not a coincidence. This is your divine interruption. Right now, this very second, there's an old clock ticking somewhere in the spirit realm. Each tick isn't counting time. It's counting down to your awakening. Heaven is holding its breath. Angels are leaning in. And the candles that have flickered over your life for 70, 80, maybe 90 years, they're about to explode into holy fire. You've been asking God for a sign, haven't you? You've whispered into the darkness, "Lord, do you still see me? Have you forgotten my name?" This is your sign. The midnight hour isn't just coming, it's here. And you, beloved, you who've survived every storm, buried every dream, carried every burden, you're about to discover why you're still breathing when others have gone home. Because God kept you here for this moment. This sacred courtroom where your destiny gets announced. This divine intersection where your pain meets your purpose, where your scars become your credentials, where your final assignment gets delivered before midnight. If your spirit is already stirring, if your chest feels tight and something unspoken is waking up inside you, type, "I'm listening" in the comments. Let heaven take attendance. Because what's about to be revealed has been sealed until this very hour. Before we go deeper, let me honor every precious soul who has supported this message through prayer, presence, or giving. You're not just helping a channel reach people, you're helping heaven reach someone sitting in the dark tonight, wondering if God still remembers their address. Whether you give or not, your heart matters. Your time here matters. You matter. Now breathe deep, chosen one. Stay close, because what you're about to hear has been whispered in the throne room with your name attached to it. This message didn't find you randomly scrolling through videos at this exact moment. You were summoned. The scroll is about to open. The seal is about to break. Your final message from the Almighty arrives tonight. And if you turn away now, if you let fear or doubt convince you this isn't for you, you'll miss the one thing heaven wrote for you alone. The courtroom is in session. Your name has been called. What happens next? We'll rewrite everything. Have you ever felt like your prayers were being returned to sender? Like heaven had your old address but somehow missed the forwarding notice when your heart moved to a place called survival mode? Have you ever wondered if God sees the tears you cry at 3 a.m. when the house is quiet and the weight of invisible burdens presses down on your chest like a stone? Chosen one, your life has been a mailbox. And for 40, 50, maybe 60 years, there's been an envelope sitting inside with your name written in handwriting that looks suspiciously like lightning. But you've been too busy, too tired, too convinced you weren't important enough to receive mail from the Almighty to ever open it. Until tonight. You see, God wrote you a letter in the spirit the night you survived that heartbreak that should have killed you. He sealed it with fire the morning you buried your mother and still got up to make breakfast for everyone else. He stamped it with tears the day your husband walked out, leaving you with 3 children and a mortgage you couldn't pronounce, let alone pay. But life kept you too busy to read it. Survival had its own schedule. And divine mail? Well, that felt like a luxury you couldn't afford. You were the one who raised children who forgot to say thank you. You stayed faithful to a marriage that didn't feel fair. You tithed with trembling hands when your bank account was crying and still wondered, did God see me? Did any of it matter? You carried everyone else's dreams while yours collected dust in the attic of your soul. You were strong for your family, your church, your community, until being strong became your prison and being needed became your only identity. The world called you dependable, heaven called you chosen. But somewhere between changing diapers and changing bedpans, between youth group fundraisers and funeral arrangements, between holding other people together and falling apart in private, you forgot to check your spiritual mailbox. Isaiah 43:1 whispers this over your life tonight. I have called you by name. You are mine. Not I will call you, Not I might call you if you clean up your act. I have called you, past tense, already done, already settled in the courts of heaven, before you took your first breath in that delivery room in Brooklyn 73 years ago. You were marked before you were made. But here's what the enemy never wanted you to discover. What if the delay wasn't rejection but divine incubation? What if those 40 years you spent feeling invisible weren't punishment but preparation? What if your silence was sacred, not accidental? What if God was growing something in you during those long nights when you felt forgotten? Something so profound, so powerful, so precisely calibrated to this exact moment in history that it required decades of pressure to form? Diamonds aren't created in comfort, beloved. They're forged 100 miles beneath the surface under pressure that would crush ordinary stones to powder. And you? You've been 100 miles deep for so long you forgot what sunlight felt like. Moses spent 40 years in a desert thinking he was finished. David hid in caves for years while his crown gathered dust. Joseph rotted in prison while his dreams seemed to mock him from the darkness. But their delay wasn't divine amnesia, it was divine strategy. And yours has been too. Close your eyes for just a moment. Can you feel it? That flutter in your chest that's not quite anxiety and not quite hope. That stirring that feels like recognition. Like your soul remembering something your mind forgot. That's not your imagination. That's heaven delivering registered mail. And the return receipt has been signed in the blood of the Lamb. You thought you missed your moment. You thought your time had passed. You thought God had moved on to younger, stronger, less complicated vessels. But what if I told you that everything you thought disqualified you actually certified you? What if every tear you cried in secret watered the seeds of a calling so magnificent that it required a lifetime of hidden cultivation? The letter has been waiting, beloved. The envelope has been sealed. The message has been burning with anticipation for the moment when you would finally be ready to receive what was written for you before the foundation of the world. And that moment is now. Right now, as these words wash over your weary soul like oil on ancient wounds, the seal is breaking, the envelope is opening, the handwriting is becoming visible, and what it says will redefine everything you thought you knew about your past, your purpose, and your remaining days on this earth. If this sounds like your life, if these words are cutting through decades of spiritual numbness like a sword made of starlight, whisper it. It's me. I was the one the letter was written for. Say it to the empty room. Say it to the ceiling that's heard your silent screams. Say it to the God who never stopped writing love letters to a mailbox. He never stopped checking. Because the chosen aren't chosen for their perfection. They're chosen for their perseverance. They're not selected for their strength. They're marked for their faithfulness in the fire. The envelope is open, beloved. The letter is unfolding. And what you're about to read has been burning in heaven's heart since the night you were born. But before God releases the full contents of this sacred correspondence, there's one more thing you need to understand about the clock that's been ticking in your spirit for decades. Have you ever felt time mocking you, like every tick of the clock was counting down your failures instead of counting up your victories? Have you ever wondered why you're still here when everyone else seems to have found their place, their peace, their promised land? Listen to me. Chosen one. There are two kinds of time operating in your life right now. There's Chronos time, the merciless march of seconds that tells you you're running out, that you're too old, that you've missed your moment. That's the clock on your wall, the calendar pages turning, the mirror reflecting years you think were wasted. But then there's Kairos time, sacred time, God's time. And tonight, beloved, Kairos is about to swallow Chronos whole. You see, while you've been counting birthdays, heaven has been counting breakthroughs. While you've been measuring years, the Almighty has been measuring your surrender. While you've been worried about time running out, God has been waiting for time to ripen. Isaiah 43:1 declares, "Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine." Your name, not someone else's. Not the young pastor with the perfect smile. Not the successful businessman with the clean record. Yours. The one who's been beaten by life, but never bowed by it. Picture this with me. In the ancient courts of heaven, there stands a clock tower that defies human understanding. Its gears don't turn with seconds, they turn with souls. Its pendulum doesn't swing with minutes, it swings with moments of divine surrender. And tonight, chosen one, those massive bronze gears are grinding into alignment for the first time in your lifetime. Can you hear it? That deep, resonating chime echoing through the corridors of eternity. The clock in heaven doesn't count seconds, it counts surrender. Every time you got on your knees when your pride wanted to stand tall, the gears moved. Every time you chose forgiveness, when revenge felt justified, the pendulum swung. Every time you whispered your will, not mine, through tears that nobody saw, heaven's timepiece ticked closer to this moment. And tonight at midnight, the gears have aligned. This is your release bell. You were the one who carried fire in a world built for ice. The one who spoke hope in rooms full of cynics. The one who kept believing when belief became a burden. You thought the world forgot you, but heaven was taking notes. You thought your voice didn't matter, but angels were listening. You thought your time had passed, but God was saying, not yet, not until the clock strikes. What if the delay wasn't rejection but divine incubation? What if your decades of silence weren't punishment but preparation? What if every closed door, every shattered dream, every season of obscurity was God saying, I'm not ready to release you yet. The world isn't desperate enough. The hour isn't dark enough. But when it is, close your eyes. Can you feel it? The atmosphere shifting around you like the air before a thunderstorm. That's not anxiety, beloved. That's anticipation. Heaven is stirring. The watchers are moving. The ancient ones are whispering your name in rooms you've never seen. Revelation 1-3 promises, blessed is the one who reads aloud the words of this prophecy, and blessed are those who hear it, and take to heart what is written in it, because the time is near. The time is near, not someday, not eventually. Near, close, within reach. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. Your final assignment has been sealed in a scroll with your name burned into the parchment. Not written, burned, with fire from the altar of the Most High God. And tonight, that seal is about to crack. For 70 years, maybe 80, maybe more, you've been asking God, what am I here for? What's my purpose? Did I miss it? But you weren't asking the wrong question, you were asking it at the wrong time. Because some assignments can only be given to those who've been refined by fire, tested by time, and proven faithful in the furnace of obscurity. Moses was 80 when God handed him his final assignment, not 40 when he had strength, not 60 when he had connections, 80 when he had nothing left but obedience. Abraham was 99 when God renewed his covenant, not 30 when he was fertile, not 50 when he was ambitious, 99 when all he had left was faith. Your age isn't your disqualification, it's your credential. The gears are turning, the watchers are watching, the courtroom of heaven is in session, and your case is being called. Not for judgment, for deployment, not for sentencing, for sending, not for punishment, for purpose. If your heart is pounding right now, if the word assignment made your spine straighten, if something ancient and forgotten is stirring in your chest, type, I'm still on duty in the comments. Let heaven take roll call. Let the angels see that you haven't retired from the kingdom. You've just been waiting for your final orders. Because what's about to happen next will require everyone God has marked to be present and accounted for. The midnight hour is striking, the holy clock is chiming, and your name is echoing through chambers you've only dreamed of. The assignment you thought you missed, it's about to be handed to you personally. The calling you thought expired, it's about to be renewed with compound interest. The voice you thought went silent, it's about to roar with the authority of someone who survived every storm and learned to dance in the rain. But first, you need to understand something that will change everything you thought you knew about the years you thought were wasted. Have you ever stood in your kitchen at midnight, staring at old photographs, wondering where the decades went? Have you ever whispered to an empty room, God, did I waste it all? Have you ever felt like time slipped through your fingers like sand, and now you're holding nothing but regret? Chosen one, what if I told you that every year you think was lost was actually found by heaven? You were the one who stayed up all night with a sick child while your spouse slept soundly. You were the one who worked 2 jobs to keep the lights on while others complained about overtime. You were the one who carried fire in a world built for ice, warmth in a generation raised on cold shoulders and colder hearts. And they called you too much, too sensitive, too intense, too old-fashioned. But heaven called you faithful. Listen to these words from Isaiah 43:1. I have called you by name, you are mine. Not I will call you someday. Not I might call you if you clean up your act. I have called you. Past tense. Already done. Your name echoes in eternity. Chosen one. Whether you heard it or not. That year you buried your best friend? God was burying the seed of wisdom in you. The night you stayed awake crying over your prodigal child. Heaven was planting intercession in your bones. The season you felt invisible, forgotten, passed over for promotion after promotion. The Father was seasoning you in the secret place where only He could see. You thought you were stuck. Heaven called it seasoning. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness thinking his life was over. 40 years, tending sheep when he was called to lead nations. At 80 years old, 80, when most men are planning their funeral arrangements, God appeared in a burning bush and said, "Now you're ready." Sarah was 90 when God opened her womb. 90. Her friends had long stopped asking about children. Her neighbors whispered she was too old to hope. But Isaac's laughter proved that God's timeline doesn't follow human logic. Caleb was 85 when he stood before Joshua and declared, "Give me this mountain. Not give me a rocking chair or give me a quiet retirement. Give me this mountain, give me the giants, give me the impossible." And Anna the prophetess? She was 84 years old, spending day and night in the temple, praying for the consolation of Israel. 84 years of waiting. 84 years of believing. 84 years of what others might call wasted time. But when baby Jesus was brought to the temple, she was the first to recognize the Messiah. Her aged eyes saw what younger eyes missed. What if your delay wasn't rejection but divine incubation? What if your silence was sacred, not accidental? What if every closed door, every broken dream, every season of feeling invisible was actually God hiding you until the world was desperate enough to receive what only you can give? You weren't being overlooked, beloved. You were being prepared. Think about a diamond. For millions of years it sits deep underground, compressed by unimaginable pressure, refined by heat that would destroy lesser stones. The world above never sees it, never knows it exists. But that hiddenness isn't punishment, it's preparation. When it finally emerges, it carries a brilliance that can only be forged in the dark. That's you, chosen one. You've been in the deep places, you've felt the pressure, you've endured the heat. And now, close your eyes. Can you feel it? The whisper. It's God, and He's still calling you by name. Every tear you cried in secret was collected in heaven's bottles. Every prayer you whispered in the darkness was recorded in eternal archives. Every act of faithfulness when no one was watching was witnessed by the one who never sleeps. Psalm 56:8 says, "You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle. Your pain wasn't random. Your suffering wasn't pointless. Your silent years weren't empty. They were full of divine purpose you couldn't see yet." But here's what breaks my heart. Here's what the enemy has been whispering in your ear for years. He's told you that because you're 70, 80, 90 years old, your time has passed, that your moment has expired, that God is done using people your age. That's a lie from the pit of hell. Your age isn't your expiration date, it's your activation code. Your wrinkles aren't signs of decay, they're marks of victory. Every gray hair is a trophy. Every line on your face tells a story of survival that younger generations need to hear. What if I told you that your most powerful years aren't behind you, they're ahead of you? What if your greatest impact won't come from your strength, but from your scars? What if the world needs exactly what you carry: wisdom forged in fire, faith tested by time, love seasoned by loss? You were not late. You were hidden. And now, You are being revealed. Right now, as these words wash over your spirit, something ancient is stirring. Something that's been dormant for decades is waking up. That calling you buried under years of responsibility, that dream you thought died with your youth, that fire you thought flickered out in the storms of life, it's still there. And it's about to blaze. The enemy made one crucial mistake. He spent so much time trying to convince you that your time was over, he forgot to actually stop God's timing. While you were believing lies about being too old, too tired, too forgotten, heaven was positioning you for the greatest chapter of your story. Every rejection prepared you for this acceptance. Every delay trained you for this divine appointment. Every season of hiddenness equipped you for this moment of revelation. You thought you were waiting for God to use you, but God was waiting for you to be ready to be used. And chosen one. You're ready now. The caterpillar doesn't understand the cocoon. All it knows is darkness, stillness, what feels like death. But inside that seeming tomb, wings are forming. Inside that apparent ending, a completely new creation is taking shape. Your cocoon years are over, beloved. Your wings are ready. If you're still breathing, if your heart is still beating, if you can still hear my voice, then your assignment is still active. Your calling is still current. Your purpose is still alive. 70 years old, Moses was just getting started. 80 years old, you're right on schedule. 90 years old, Sarah is cheering you on from the cloud of witnesses. The world counts your years as decline. Heaven counts them as credentials. Society sees your age and expects less. God sees your experience and prepares more. But before God releases you into this next dimension of your calling, before he unveils what he's been building in you through all these years of seeming waste, there's one more truth you must face. One more sacred secret that will explain why your life has felt like such a battle, why the attacks have been so intense, why hell itself has seemed to target you personally. Because what I'm about to reveal next will show you that your struggle wasn't random. It was recognition. Have you ever screamed into the silence and heard nothing back? Have you ever wondered if your prayers were bouncing off heaven's ceiling like stones thrown at bulletproof glass? Have you ever felt so forgotten by God that you questioned whether he even knew your address anymore? Chosen one, what if I told you that your silence was never empty? What if I told you that every unanswered prayer was actually God writing between the lines of your story? You know exactly what I'm talking about, don't you? Those 3 years when you prayed for your marriage and watched it crumble anyway. Those sleepless nights when you begged God to heal your mother and she slipped away in that sterile hospital room. Those decades when you cried out for breakthrough and got more breakdown instead. You called it abandonment. Heaven called it assignment. You see, there's something the enemy never wanted you to understand about divine silence. It's not emptiness. It's pregnancy. God wasn't ignoring you, beloved. He was incubating you. Think about this. When a mother carries a child, the most critical development happens in complete darkness. 9 months of hidden formation, 9 months of silent construction. The baby can't see what's being built. The mother can't rush the process. But every single day, something magnificent is taking shape in the secret place. Your spiritual silence. It was your sacred gestation period. Isaiah 49:2 declares something that will shatter your understanding of those quiet years. He made my mouth like a sharpened sword. In the shadow of his hand he hid me. He made me into a polished arrow and concealed me in his quiver. Did you catch that? Hidden, concealed, not abandoned, protected, not forgotten, prepared. You weren't in delay, chosen one. You were in divine dialogue. God wasn't speaking because he was building. He wasn't answering because he was authoring. Every silent moment was him writing the next chapter of your story with invisible ink that would only become visible when the fire of your calling finally touched the page. But let me cut deeper. Let me reach the place where your heart still bleeds. Remember that year when you lost your job at 58 and nobody would hire you? Remember when your children stopped calling and your friends started avoiding you? Remember when the diagnosis came back and the doctor's face told you everything before his words did? You sat in your car afterward and whispered, "God, where are you?" He was right there, writing, plotting, planning your comeback with the precision of a master novelist who knows that the darkest chapter always comes right before the dawn. You thought you were being punished. You were being positioned. You thought you were being overlooked. You were being overruled by a higher authority than circumstance. You thought your story was ending. God was just turning to a fresh page. But here's where it gets controversial. Here's where I need you to lean in and let this truth pierce through 40 years of religious programming. What if your delay wasn't divine rejection? What if it was divine protection? What if God kept you hidden because he knew that if you'd stepped into your calling too early, it would have destroyed you? What if your silence was sacred preparation for a sound that would shatter strongholds? Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before he opened his mouth and brought Egypt to its knees. 40 years of quiet preparation for 10 plagues that would liberate a nation. 40 years of hidden rehearsal for the moment when he would lift his staff and split the Red Sea. David spent years running through caves, hiding from King Saul, learning to hear God's voice in the darkness before he ever sat on a throne. Those weren't wasted years. Those were warrior years. Preparation years. The caves taught him to rule with the heart of a shepherd instead of the pride of a king. And you, precious one, you who've walked through valleys that would have broken lesser souls, you who've cried tears that could fill rivers, you who've carried burdens that would have crushed mountains, every silent year was God tuning your instrument for a symphony only you could play. But I need to ask you something that might sting. Are you ready? What if the very thing you thought disqualified you is exactly what qualified you? What if your scars are your credentials? What if your silence was the sound of God sharpening you in secret? Because here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. The deeper the silence, the greater the sound. The longer the preparation, the more powerful the manifestation. The more hidden you've been, the more spectacular your revealing will be. You didn't know it then, but your silence was the proof you were about to be sent. Close your eyes for just a moment. Can you feel it? That stirring in your chest that's been dormant for so long you thought it was dead. That's not nostalgia, beloved. That's recognition. Your spirit remembering what it was created for. The silence is breaking. The incubation is complete. The gestation period is over. God has been writing your story in the secret place. And now, He's ready to publish it for the world to read. Every tear you cried in the darkness, that was liquid anointing being stored in heaven's bottles. Every prayer that seemed to echo in empty air, that was sacred seed being planted in supernatural soil. Every night you went to bed feeling invisible, that was God covering you with his hand while he prepared your platform. You see, chosen one, silence in God's kingdom is never punishment. It's preparation. It's not absence. It's presence so profound that it doesn't need words. It's not delay. It's divine timing so perfect that hell itself trembles when it sees the clock about to strike your hour. The author has been writing. The silence has been shaping. The setup is complete. Your voice is about to break through decades of quiet preparation with the force of thunder after lightning. Your story is about to be told with such power that generations will read it. And remember that God still moves in impossible situations. The spiritual silence wasn't your sentence, beloved. It was your setup. And what happens next will prove that God's delays are not his denials. His silence is not his absence. His hiddenness is not his heartlessness. But what if I told you that everything you lost during those silent years, every relationship that ended, every door that closed, every dream that seemed to die, what if all of that was God clearing the stage for something so magnificent that your past would pale in comparison to your future? What if your silence was actually heaven holding its breath, waiting for the moment when you would finally understand that you weren't being forgotten? You were being prepared for your finest hour. Have you ever stared at your reflection and seen only damage? Have you counted your wounds like rosary beads, whispering shame instead of prayers? Have you believed the lie that broken people can't carry holy fire? Stop, right there. Stop. Chosen one, listen to me with every fiber of your being. That scar on your heart from the divorce that almost killed you, that's not failure. That's a fingerprint, God's fingerprint, pressed into your soul the night you chose to survive instead of surrender. That emergency surgery at 67 when they cracked your chest open and you saw the white light, you thought you were dying. But heaven was carving a cathedral inside your ribcage. Every stitch became a sacred seam. Every healing moment became holy ground. That prodigal child who broke your heart into 10,000 pieces, who walked away and never looked back, who left you crying into empty bedrooms and unanswered phone calls. You didn't fail as a parent. You bled to become a scroll others could read. Your tears watered seeds you'll never see bloom. Your faithfulness became their roadmap home. The Bible declares in Isaiah 43:1, "I have called you by name, you are mine, not called you by your successes, not summoned you by your perfection, called you by name through the fire, through the flood, through the valley of dry bones where you learned to speak life into death. You were the one who carried fire in a world built for ice. You were the lighthouse keeper in a generation that worshipped darkness. You were the intercessor standing in gaps that others couldn't even see. But here's what hell doesn't want you to know. Here's the secret the enemy has been hiding behind your shame for decades. Your scars are not evidence of your weakness. They are spiritual fingerprints of battles won. Every mark on your soul tells a story, not of defeat, but of defiance, not of breaking, but of breakthrough, not of ending, but of beginning again, when beginning again seemed impossible. That heart attack that should have taken you out at 59. You survived because God needed someone who understood what it felt like to literally have your heart stop and still choose to love. That depression that held you captive for 3 years. You fought your way through the dark so you could carry light to others drowning in the same midnight. That bankruptcy that left you eating beans from a can and praying over $20 bills. You learned that provision doesn't come from bank accounts. It flows from the throne room. And now your prayers carry the authority of someone who's seen God multiply nothing into enough. Close your eyes. Can you feel it? The whisper. It's not your imagination. It's God. And He's still calling you by name. My beloved, my chosen, my scarred one, my proven one. You think your wounds disqualify you. Jesus kept His scars after resurrection. He showed them to Thomas. He declared them as credentials. Touch my wounds, He said, and believe. Your pain wasn't your punishment. It was your preparation. Heaven doesn't trust its light to untested lamps. What if I told you that every scar you're ashamed of is actually a doorway? What if the very wounds that made you feel damaged are the exact qualifications God needs for your final assignment? You've spent decades hiding your story, covering your scars, apologizing for your limp, but David had 5 smooth stones because he'd been a shepherd throwing rocks at wolves. Moses had a stutter because God wanted a man who'd depend on divine words instead of human eloquence. Paul had a thorn in his flesh because weakness was the exact conductor God needed for supernatural power. That addiction you conquered 20 years ago? That's not your shame story. That's your authority to set captives free. That abuse you survived as a child? That's not your victim narrative. That's your weapon to speak life into broken children who think love means pain. The world looks at your scars and sees damage. Heaven looks at your scars and sees graduation certificates. You passed tests that would have destroyed others. You walked through fires that would have consumed the comfortable. You endured valleys that would have buried the untested. You are not a survivor by accident. You are a warrior by assignment. But here's the fierce truth that's about to shatter every lie you've believed about yourself. The same scars that made you feel unworthy are about to become your ministry credentials. The same wounds that convinced you God was finished with, you are about to prove that He was just getting started. Your tears became holy water. Your screams became worship. Your breaking became your breakthrough training ground. Right now, somewhere in America, there's a woman sitting in a hospital room getting the same diagnosis you got 15 years ago. She needs to hear from someone who's been there, who's felt the cold grip of fear and the warm touch of grace in the same breath. There's a man staring at divorce papers, wondering if love is real or just a cruel joke. He needs to see living proof that hearts can be shattered and still learn to love again. That trust can be betrayed and still choose to hope again. There's a grandmother watching her grandchild make the same mistakes her child made, feeling like generational curses are stronger than generational prayers. She needs to know that some prayers take decades to answer, but they always answer. You are their proof. Your scars are their hope. Your survival is their permission to keep fighting. The enemy tried to write your obituary in every wound, but God was writing your resurrection story in every scar. Your limp is your testimony. Your stutter is your sermon. Your broken places are where His light shines brightest. You didn't just survive that heartbreak. You harbored heaven in it. You didn't just endure that loss. You learned to carry others' pain without drowning in it. You didn't just make it through that dark night. You became someone who could sit with others in their midnight and remind them that sunrise is coming. Your scars are not signs of failure, chosen one. They are sacred signatures proving you've been touched by the divine and lived to tell about it. If you've got scars that taught you how to pray, if you've got wounds that became windows, if you've got breaks that became bridges for others to cross over, type, "It was preparation." Because what God is about to release through your surrendered scars will make every moment of pain worth it. Every tear you cried in secret is about to become someone else's testimony. Every battle you fought alone is about to become someone else's victory song. The question isn't whether your scars are beautiful. The question is, are you ready to let heaven use them to heal a broken world? Have you ever felt the air change before a storm? Have you ever sensed something moving in the unseen realm, shifting like ancient gears in heaven's clockwork? Have you ever known without knowing how you knew that everything was about to change? Chosen one, you're feeling it right now. The shift, the turn, the sacred click of eternity aligning with your timeline. You were the one they called too sensitive. The one who felt earthquakes in your spirit before the earth ever moved. The one who carried storms in your chest while others saw only calm skies. You were the one who knew things you couldn't explain, who dreamed dreams that made others uncomfortable, who carried fire in a world built for ice. They called you crazy. You called it lonely. Heaven called it chosen. For 70 years, maybe 80, you've been standing watch. A spiritual sentinel on the wall of your family's faith. A guardian who prayed in the midnight hour while others slept. A warrior who fought battles no one ever applauded, won victories no one ever celebrated, bled in silence while others lived in noise. You were the watchman, the intercessor, the one who stood in the gap. But tonight, this very night, the watch is changing. Isaiah 43:1 declares with thunderous authority, "Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine." Called by name, not called by accident. Not called by coincidence, called by the voice that spoke galaxies into existence, and that same voice has been whispering your name for decades. What if the delay wasn't rejection but divine incubation? What if your silence wasn't abandonment but sacred preparation? What if every year you spent feeling forgotten was actually a year you spent being hidden, refined, seasoned for this exact moment when heaven would need someone unbreakable? Because tonight at midnight, angels will shift positions, assignments will be activated, your spirit will feel it. The old guard, the watchers who've been standing at their posts for generations, they're stepping down, their prayers are complete, their vigil is finished. And God is calling forth the seasoned ones, the tested ones, the ones who've learned to worship in the wilderness, to take their place on the wall. You thought you were being benched. You were being prepared for the night shift. The midnight shift, beloved. When darkness is deepest, but victory is closest. When the world sleeps, but warriors wake. When ordinary prayer becomes supernatural warfare. When quiet faith becomes roaring authority. When hidden saints become visible saviors. Close your eyes. Can you feel it? The whisper. It's God. And He's still calling you by name. Come up here, He's saying. Come up to your post. Come up to your position. Come up to your purpose. You are not retiring from the kingdom. You are being redeployed. But here's what you must understand. This shift isn't automatic. This elevation isn't accidental. This midnight commissioning requires your participation. It demands your yes. It needs your faith to receive what grace is releasing. Your letter arrives by fire, but it must be received by faith. God has written your final assignment on a scroll that burns but is never consumed. Like Moses' burning bush, it flames with holy purpose but never turns to ash. This commission carries such supernatural weight that only those who've been through their own fires can handle the heat. The assignment isn't comfortable, it's consequential. It doesn't promise ease, it promises impact. It won't make you popular, it will make you powerful. Because midnight warriors don't fight for applause, they fight for breakthrough. Some of you are feeling heat in your chest right now. That's not emotion, that's ordination. Some of you sense electricity in the atmosphere around you. That's not imagination, that's activation. Some of you feel tears coming for reasons you can't name. Those aren't tears of sadness, they're tears of recognition. Your spirit recognizes what your mind is just beginning to understand. You were born for this hour, prepared for this moment, hidden for this revealing. The world counted you out when you turned 70. Heaven marked you ready at 70. Society told you to step back. The Almighty said, step forward. They whispered, your time is over. God thundered, your time has come. Because while the young ones are building platforms, the seasoned ones are building altars. While they're gaining followers, you're gaining authority. While they're learning to speak, you've learned to listen. And the voice you've been hearing in the secret place, it's about to become the voice that shifts atmospheres in public spaces. The enemy knows what time it is. That's why the attacks have been so fierce lately. That's why depression tried to drown you last month. That's why relationships suddenly shifted without explanation. That's why your body has been under assault. Hell recognizes midnight appointments, and demons get desperate when heaven's guard changes. But their desperation is proof of your promotion. Their panic is evidence of your purpose. Their fear is confirmation that you carry something they cannot stop, cannot steal, cannot kill. Right now, this very second, there's a trumpet being lifted to angelic lips in the throne room. One blast will signal the shift. One sound will activate the assignments. One note will awaken the midnight warriors who've been sleeping in the shadows of their own doubt. Are you ready to answer when heaven calls your name? Are you ready to take your position on the wall? Are you ready to discover why God kept you alive, kept you fighting, kept you believing when everything in you wanted to quit? If you're ready to receive your final assignment, if you can feel the fire of ordination burning in your bones, if your spirit is responding to the call of the midnight shift, say it loud in the comments. I accept the scroll, because the watch is changing, the guard is shifting, and you, chosen one, are being called to your post. The midnight hour has arrived. Your assignment awaits, and heaven is holding its breath to see what you'll do next. Have you ever wondered why your life felt like a battlefield while others seemed to walk through gardens? Why every door you approached slammed shut, just as your fingers touched the handle? Why the very people who should have celebrated you became the ones who questioned you most? Listen to me, chosen one. What if I told you that every attack wasn't random? What if every assault on your peace, your finances, your relationships, your very sanity was strategic? You weren't under attack because you were weak. You were under surveillance because you were carrying destiny. The enemy doesn't waste ammunition on empty vessels. Satan doesn't deploy his most vicious demons against people who pose no threat. Hell doesn't orchestrate elaborate schemes to destroy ordinary lives. But you've been in his crosshairs since the day you drew your first breath. You didn't attract darkness because you were broken. You attracted it because you were loaded. Think about it. Why has your journey been so much harder than most? Why have you faced betrayals that would have shattered lesser souls? Why have you walked through valleys so deep that you wondered if the sun would ever shine again? Because the enemy saw what God planted in you before you even knew it existed. He saw your future influence and tried to isolate you early. He saw your future healing power and tried to wound you first. He saw your future voice and spent decades trying to silence you with shame. He saw your future breakthrough and threw everything he had at keeping you broken down. Every financial crisis that brought you to your knees, that was hell trying to convince you that God doesn't provide. Every relationship that crumbled when you needed it most, that was darkness attempting to make you believe you're unlovable. Every health scare that left you gasping for breath. That was the enemy trying to steal your tomorrow before you discovered what you were truly capable of. But here's what Satan didn't count on. Here's the miscalculation that sealed his defeat in your life. Every attack only refined what God was building in you. Every wound became a well of compassion. Every tear became liquid wisdom. Every moment you almost gave up but didn't, that was divine DNA activating in your bloodstream. Isaiah 54:17 declares with thunderous authority, "No weapon forged against you will prevail." Not some weapons, not most weapons, no weapon. Every scheme, every plot, every carefully orchestrated assault designed to take you out has failed, because failure is the only option when hell goes to war with heaven's agenda. You survived what should have killed you. You kept believing when logic said quit. You held on to faith when your circumstances screamed that God had forgotten your address. That's not human resilience, beloved. That's supernatural evidence that you carry something hell cannot touch, something darkness cannot kill, something the grave cannot hold. Close your eyes for a moment. Can you feel it? That stirring in your chest. That's not your imagination. That's the sound of chains breaking. That's the sound of every lie the enemy whispered, crumbling under the weight of truth. That's the sound of your true identity rising from the ashes of everything that tried to bury it. You think those panic attacks were just anxiety? Number. Those were spiritual alerts that you were approaching breakthrough. You think that depression was just chemical imbalance? Number. That was the enemy trying to suffocate the light he knew was about to explode from within you. You think those sleepless nights were just insomnia? Number. Those were intercession sessions, where your spirit was fighting battles in realms you couldn't see. The warfare wasn't trying to destroy you. It was revealing who you really are underneath everything the world tried to tell you about yourself. Every time you chose forgiveness over bitterness, you proved you carried divine DNA. Every time you got back up when staying down would have been easier, you demonstrated that resurrection power flows through your veins. Every time you blessed those who cursed you, you showed that heaven's nature has been cultivated in your heart. But here's the revelation that will shatter every limitation you've ever placed on yourself. The enemy's greatest attacks always come right before God's greatest activations. The darker the assault, the brighter the breakthrough that's coming. The more vicious the opposition, the more powerful the anointing that's about to be released. Think about Moses. Pharaoh didn't just disagree with him, he tried to genocide an entire generation. Why? Because hell saw the deliverer coming and tried to kill him in infancy. Think about Jesus. Herod didn't just dislike him, he massacred every baby boy in Bethlehem. Why? Because darkness recognized that this child would destroy the kingdom of hell itself. And you, precious one, you faced your own Pharaoh, your own Herod, your own systematic assault designed to eliminate you before you could step into what God has prepared for you. But you're still here, you're still breathing, you're still believing. That's not luck, that's not accident, that's divine protection over someone heaven refuses to lose. The very battles that seemed designed to destroy you were actually designed to prepare you for the authority God is about to release through you. Your pain wasn't pointless, it was prophetic. Your struggles weren't random, they were strategic preparation for the souls you're about to save, the chains you're about to break, the darkness you're about to dispel with the light that's been forged in your furnace. Every scar on your soul is a medal of honor. Every tear you've cried is liquid evidence of your resilience. Every night you didn't sleep is proof that you refused to quit when quitting would be easier. You didn't just survive hell's best shots. You transformed them into testimony. You turned your mourning into morning. You alchemized your pain into power. If hell's been afraid of you your whole life, say, "It knew what I didn't." Because here's what's about to happen next. All those years of attack are about to become years of authority. All those seasons of warfare are about to become seasons of victory. All those moments of hell are about to birth a demonstration of heaven on earth that will leave your enemies speechless and your destiny undeniable. The enemy thought he was destroying you. God was actually preparing you for the greatest comeback in your family's history. Your scars aren't shame, they're your signature. Your wounds aren't weakness, they're your weapons. Your survival isn't luck, it's proof that you were marked for something extraordinary. But what happens next will require you to see your battle scars not as evidence of your failure, but as credentials for your calling. Chosen one, have you ever wondered why your prayers felt like they were bouncing off heaven's ceiling? Have you ever whispered into the darkness, "God, did you forget my address?" Have you ever felt like everyone else got their miracle except you? Stop. Right there. Stop. What if I told you that every unanswered prayer wasn't rejection, it was redirection? What if every closed door wasn't abandonment, it was appointment? What if the silence you've been drowning in wasn't emptiness, it was incubation? You were the one who carried fire in a world built for ice. You were the one who spoke hope when everyone else was rehearsing defeat. You were the candle that kept burning in rooms where others blew out their flames. And all this time, you thought you were forgotten. But listen to what the Almighty whispered over you before time began. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Jeremiah 1-5. Not might know you, knew you. Past tense. Already done, already sealed, already written in the book of life with ink that never fades. You think your name got erased from heaven's roster because you buried 3 friends this year. You think God moved on because your children stopped calling. You think the Almighty forgot about you because Social Security barely covers your medication. Number. Your name is being whispered in heavenly places right now. Angels are saying, "She's ready, he's awake." The hidden one is about to be revealed. The years the locusts ate, he will restore them. The ones who left you, he will replace them. The assignment you laid down when your spouse died, he is handing it back to you before midnight. Close your eyes. Can you feel it? That stirring in your chest that you've been trying to ignore. That's not your imagination. That's not wishful thinking. That's the sound of destiny knocking on the door of your spirit. And it's been knocking for 70 years. But here's what will shock you to your core. The delay wasn't God's cruelty. It was God's strategy. Moses was 80 when the burning bush called his name. Abraham was 99 when Isaac was promised. Sarah laughed at 90 because she thought it was too late. But God's clock doesn't run on earth time. His calendar doesn't retire you at 65. His plans don't have expiration dates. What if your age isn't your limitation, it's your qualification? What if your scars aren't your shame, they're your credentials? What if the very thing that made you feel forgotten was actually God hiding you until the world was desperate enough to need what you carry? Right now, heaven is opening files that have been sealed for decades. Your file, the one marked for such a time as this. The one that contains every tear you cried in secret, every prayer you whispered when no one was listening, every moment you chose faith over fear when fear would have been easier. God has been collecting your tears in bottles. Psalm 56-8, every single drop. And tonight, this very night, those tears are being transformed into liquid fire that will burn away every lie that told you your time was over. The enemy whispered, "You're too old." God thunders, "You're finally ready." The world said, "Sit down." Heaven says, "Stand up." Your family declared, "You're done." The Almighty declares, "You're just getting started." But listen carefully, beloved. This message isn't coming to you by accident. This isn't random YouTube clicking at 11:47 p.m. This is divine appointment. This is your burning bush moment. This is God saying, "I've been waiting for you to get still enough, desperate enough, broken enough to finally hear what I've been trying to tell you for 8 decades. The assignment you thought died with your spouse, it's not dead, it was dormant. The calling you buried when the church hurt you, it's not gone, it was germinating. The fire you thought went out when everyone abandoned you, it wasn't extinguished, it was concentrated. You know what your problem has been? You've been listening to earth's verdict instead of heaven's voice. You've been measuring your worth by your wrinkles instead of your wisdom. You've been counting your failures instead of your faithfulness. But God doesn't see your age. He sees your authority. He doesn't see your limitation. He sees your legacy. He doesn't see your past. He sees your purpose. And that purpose has an expiration date. Never. Right now, as I speak these words over your life, something is shifting in the spiritual realm. Doors that have been locked for generations are creaking open. Opportunities that seemed impossible are aligning themselves with your availability. Divine connections are being orchestrated. Supernatural provision is being released. The phone call that will change everything, it's coming. The idea that will transform your final years, it's downloading. The relationship that will restore your faith in love, it's approaching. The miracle that will prove God never forgot, it's manifesting. But you have to stop seeing yourself through the world's eyes and start seeing yourself through heaven's lens. You are not a senior citizen marking time until eternity. You are a kingdom general who's been seasoned by fire and commissioned for victory. The years you thought were wasted, they were warrior training. The pain you thought was pointless, it was prophetic preparation. The silence you thought was abandonment, it was sacred assignment. And now, beloved, now the silence breaks. Your name is echoing through the corridors of heaven, not in judgment, in celebration, not in disappointment, in anticipation, because the one who was hidden is about to be revealed. The one who was forgotten is about to be remembered. The one who felt finished is about to be refueled. This is your midnight hour, your burning bush moment, your Red Sea parting, your Jericho wall falling. But what happens next depends entirely on one thing. Will you finally believe that God's not done writing your story? Have you ever stared at a candle burning down to its last inch of wax and wondered if that's what your life looks like to God? Have you felt the flame of your spirit flickering so low that one more betrayal, one more diagnosis, one more goodbye might snuff it out forever? What if I told you that what you think is your final ember is actually your moment of ignition? Chosen one, I see you there. 83 years old, arthritis in your knuckles, hearing aid whistling softly in your left ear. You think your fire is dying because your body reminds you every morning that time is a thief. But listen to me carefully. Your joints may ache, your breath may tremble, your steps may be slower than they were at 30. But the flame never left. You were the one carrying light through decades of darkness. While others complained about small inconveniences, you buried 3 friends last winter and still showed up to church with a smile. While your children moved across the country and forgot to call, you lit that same candle every Sunday morning and prayed for their protection. You've been burning quietly, faithfully, thinking no one noticed. Heaven noticed. Isaiah 43:2 declares, "When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze." But here's what the world doesn't understand about that verse. It's not talking about avoiding the fire. It's talking about becoming the fire. You didn't just survive those flames, beloved. You absorbed them. You became them. Every loss that should have broken you only made your flame burn purer. Every betrayal that should have made you bitter only refined your light. Every silent year when you felt forgotten was actually you being seasoned like a wick soaked in sacred oil, preparing for the moment when heaven would strike the match. And that moment is now. What if your trembling hands aren't signs of weakness but evidence of anticipation? What if your restless nights aren't insomnia but your spirit staying awake for an appointment you don't even remember making? What if that tightness in your chest isn't anxiety but your soul recognizing that the long wait is almost over? You think you're running out of time. God thinks you're running into your finest hour. Close your eyes for just a moment. Can you feel it? That warmth spreading through your chest. That's not your heart condition acting up. That's the oil of gladness being poured fresh over your spirit. That's decades of stored prayer being activated. That's every tear you cried in secret being transformed into liquid fire. The enemy whispered lies to you for so long. You're too old. You're irrelevant. Your best days are behind you. Nobody needs what you have to offer anymore. But those weren't God's thoughts about you. Those were hell's fears about you. Because hell knows something about aged fire that the world forgot it burns, the hottest, longest, and purest. A 20-year-old flame might flicker with excitement, but an 80-year-old flame? It roars with authority, It carries the weight of tested faith. It moves with the confidence of someone who's watched God show up when everything looked impossible. You remember that night in 1987 when you thought you might not make it to morning, when the doctor's words echoed in the hospital room and you felt so alone you could taste the fear. But you did make it. You're here. Still breathing, still believing. That wasn't luck, chosen one. That was divine preservation. God has been protecting this flame inside you through decades of storms because he knew there would come a night tonight when the world would need exactly what you carry. Your patience earned through loss. Your wisdom carved by disappointment. Your faith refined by fire. Tonight, that candle flame doesn't just flicker, it explodes. Think about Moses at the burning bush, an 80-year-old shepherd who thought his moment had passed. But when heaven lit that bush, it didn't just burn, it blazed without being consumed. The fire wasn't destroying, it was revealing. It wasn't ending, it was beginning. You are that bush, beloved. You've been burning with holy fire your entire life, but the world called it ordinary. They saw an elderly person going through the motions. God saw a flamekeeper maintaining the light until the appointed hour. And this is your appointed hour. Your grandchildren need to see what real fire looks like. Your community needs to witness what happens when tested faith meets divine timing. This generation that's lost and confused and drowning in digital noise, they need to encounter someone who carries authentic flame, someone whose very presence reminds them that God is still real, still moving, still lighting candles in the darkness. But here's what will shock you: the flame that's about to explode through your life won't make you younger. It will make you dangerous. Not dangerous to people, but dangerous to every force that has tried to convince this world that God has gone silent. Dangerous to every lie that says miracles ended with the apostles. Dangerous to every voice that claims the elderly are forgotten, irrelevant, and powerless. You carry fire that has been seasoned by time, tested by pain, and proven by faithfulness. When that fire touches others, they don't just feel warmth, they feel eternity. They don't just see light, they see the source of all light moving through human flesh that has learned to host his presence. Your wrinkled hands are about to lay on foreheads and watch depression flee. Your trembling voice is about to speak words that unlock destinies. Your slow steps are about to walk into rooms where hopelessness lives and leave behind the fragrance of miracles. The candle you thought was burning down, it's about to become a torch that lights 1,000 other flames. Light a candle tonight if you're ready. Not just any candle, light it as an act of agreement with heaven. Light it as your signal fire to the angelic realm that says, I'm awake, I'm available. I'm ready for the flame that never dies to manifest through this body that the world thinks is dying. Place that candle where you can see it. Sit in its glow. Feel the warmth on your face. And remember, you are not watching a flame. You are the flame. You are not lighting a candle. You are awakening the fire that God breathed into your spirit before you took your first breath. The wick may be short, but the oil is eternal. The wax may be nearly gone, but the fire burns from another realm. Tonight, heaven sees your signal. Tonight, your flame joins the great cloud of witnesses. Tonight, you stop being a candle and start being conflagration. But the explosion of flame is only the beginning of what God wants to release through you. Because when fire touches a life that has been prepared by decades of faithfulness, it doesn't just ignite, it transforms everything it touches. Have you ever wondered why you survived what should have killed you? Why you're still standing when everyone said you wouldn't make it? Why your name keeps echoing in rooms where broken people gather, looking for someone who understands their scars? Because you were never meant to just survive, chosen one. You were forged to send. Look at your hands right now, those weathered fingers that have wiped tears, signed divorce papers, held the hands of the dying. They're not the hands of someone who's finished. They're the hands of a commissioned general who's been through basic training disguised as a lifetime of pain. Your former title was Survivor. Your new mantle is Sender, Intercessor, Activator, Chosen One. As we reach the end of this sacred journey together, I need you to hold on to 3 eternal truths that will anchor your soul in the storms ahead. First, remember this: you are not a candle burning down. You are a flame being fanned into holy fire. Every year you've lived, every trial you've endured, every moment you felt forgotten has been adding oil to the wick of your destiny. Tonight, you discovered that what you thought was your ending is actually your beginning. Second, the message that found you tonight wasn't random. It was appointed. Heaven has been orchestrating this moment when your spirit would finally hear what it's been longing to know. You are seen, you are chosen, and your assignment is far from over. The midnight hour isn't your conclusion, it's your commissioning. Third, the flame that ignited in your chest as you listen to these words that fire is real. It's not emotion, it's not wishful thinking. It's the breath of the Almighty, awakening what has been dormant, activating what has been waiting, and releasing what this generation desperately needs to witness. But hear me clearly, beloved, you are not walking this path alone. Even when the flame feels fragile, even when the world seems dark, even when doubt whispers that you're too old or too broken, remember this. The God who lit your fire is the same God who promised never to leave you nor forsake you. He is working in your life right now, in this very moment, orchestrating divine appointments you can't even see yet. And beyond His presence, you have something beautiful right here, a community of fellow flame carriers who understand your journey because they've walked the same path. In these comments, in this digital sanctuary, there are thousands of souls just like you who have felt forgotten but are learning they are chosen. You are surrounded by a cloud of witnesses who will pray with you, stand with you, and remind you that your light matters. Look at these comments flowing in. Each one represents a heart that was touched, a spirit that was stirred, a life that was changed because you chose to stay and listen. You're not just part of an audience, you're part of a family, a tribe of the awakened, a generation of spiritual warriors who refuse to go quietly into the night. Now let me ask you this final question, and let it settle deep in your spirit. If God has kept you here through every storm, sustained you through every loss, and preserved you for this very moment, what flame will you carry into tomorrow? Before I release you into your destiny, bow your head with me and let me place my hand on your shoulder through these words. Let me pray over you with the authority of someone who has walked with God through every season of life and witnessed His faithfulness in the darkest hours. Heavenly Father, I lift up every precious soul who has journeyed with us tonight. Lord, you see them, not just their tired bodies, but their eternal spirits that burn with your fire. You know every tear they've cried in secret, every prayer they've whispered in the dark, every moment they've wondered if you still remembered their name. Tonight, God, breathe fresh wind into their weary souls. Where they feel forgotten, remind them they are chosen. Where they feel finished, show them they are just beginning. Where they feel weak, let your strength be made perfect. Father, open doors they didn't even know existed. Provide for needs they haven't spoken aloud. Heal bodies that doctors have given up on. Restore relationships that seem beyond repair. Give them dreams and visions that will guide their steps. Surround them with people who will recognize the fire you've placed within them. Lord, let them wake tomorrow morning knowing, not just believing, but knowing that they are loved beyond measure, called beyond their circumstances, and equipped beyond their understanding. Let every sunrise remind them that you're still writing their story. Let every breath declare that their assignment is active. And Father, use them. Use their aged hands to comfort the brokenhearted. Use their weathered voices to speak hope into despair. Use their tested faith to demonstrate your faithfulness to a generation that has forgotten how to believe in miracles. In Jesus' mighty name, we seal this prayer, this moment, this awakening. Amen. Now, beloved flame carrier, I want to hear from you. In the comments below, tell us how God spoke to your heart tonight. Share what shifted in your spirit. Ask for prayer if you need it. This community will surround you with intercession. Don't hold back. Your testimony might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to keep believing. And if this message set your soul on fire, share it with someone who needs to remember they're not forgotten. There's someone in your life right now, a neighbor, a family member, a friend who feels exactly like you felt when you clicked on this video. They need to know they're chosen too. They need to discover their flame is just waiting to be rekindled. Before you go, if this is your first time with us, welcome to the family. Hit that subscribe button and join thousands of believers who gather here regularly to be reminded of who they are in Christ. We're not just building a channel, we're building a community where the forgotten remember they are chosen, where the weary find strength, and where the flame of faith burns bright in every season. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart, for letting these words penetrate the sacred chambers of your soul. Thank you for being brave enough to believe that your best days aren't behind you, they're just beginning to unfold. The midnight hour has passed. The flame has been lit. Your final message has been delivered. Now go, chosen one. Carry that fire, light up the darkness, and never forget you are loved, you are called, and you are never, ever alone. The mission continues.